we don't really talk about it. I mean, did you really talk about sickness or mental health when you were growing up? It was something you maybe talked about behind closed doors, but out in public, you never talked about, because we wanted to put on that persona that we were good, we were perfect, and we didn't want to show any weaknesses whatsoever.
I think fear and stigma
Yes.
both come into play.
Well, and it's fear of a lot of the unknown, because mental health has always been around, but no one really talked about it. No one really did anything with it. So that is what I'm here to talk to you about today. And there's actually been an increase in counselors coming into the field in the last 20 years or so. So there are 450 people in the whole world that deal with a mental illness or disorder. Is that a high number, do you feel like?
Probably not.
No? Okay.
Say that again, there were
450 million people in the entire world that deal with a mental illness or disorder.
That's probably too low,
Why do you think that is?
because some of them don't get diagnosed.
Because they have the pride, or they just shove it underneath the rug and then I'll deal with it later. And then what ends up happening if they, do get dementia or Alzheimer's, all of that stuff that they push back comes back up later on because they never dealt with it. So if we deal with it now, then we are able to better help ourselves and our loved ones in the long run. So you ran into my next thing. Dealing with being, I worked at behavior medicine and working in a clinic and actually working in the schools. When someone is diagnosed with a disorder and you ask them, well, are you struggling? Have you talked to anybody about it? Their first response most of the time is no. And I ask them why, or what's the reason behind it. They either are too afraid, they don't want to show weakness, or they're too proud to show or say that they've got something going on with them. And I think that's part of the problem with our view on mental health is no one wants to show their weakness. No one wants to be vulnerable in that aspect. But you have to be vulnerable to be able to grow in mental health. So I'm going to give you 7 different things that we can do to destigmatize mental health, and specifically mental health for the caregiver. Because as y'all know, being caregivers, y'all's things get put on the back burner, and y'all do not deal with your either going to the doctor or socializing or doing things for you. And so what I'm here to tell you is to hopefully get you to realize that your stuff is important too. So I've always loved the analogy. Actually, a person I was going through internship with told me this. He said, when you're on an airplane and the oxygen mask drop, who do you put it on first?
You.
Why do you put it on yourself first, Mr. Noble?
Because you can't help anybody else if you're not still alive.
Exactly. You have to help yourself first to then be able to help that other person. You have to have your tank full before you help them. So the first thing is to be able to talk openly about mental health. And when you talk openly about mental health, it is easier. The more you do it, the easier it gets. That first time it's a little bit awkward. If you see someone struggling with something, you may see that they're depressed or they're angry or they're frustrated. If you talk to them about that and they know that you're an open person and you can talk to, then you are able to, one, build that relationship with that person where you're their trusted person they're going to come and talk to, but you're making yourself vulnerable and opening yourself up to them, that they know, okay, I'm not the only one dealing with this, and it's okay, I feel like this. So being able to talk about it is, and I mean, you don't have to talk to someone who is a professional. You can talk to someone who is a friend or a pastor or anyone that is, willing to listen, because not everybody's willing to listen. You have to find that right person for you that's going to talk to you about it and be able to be open with you about it. So the second one is to be conscious of your language in regards to mental health. Does anyone understand what I mean when I say be conscious of language? So if you know someone who is diagnosed with someone, so take example, someone who's diagnosed with schizophrenia. What is usually the first thing we call them?
Crazy. And that's what I was thinking.
Schizophrenia.
Okay.
So, yeah, label them.
You label them as, you know, a schizophrenic, a crazy person. If you do that enough in front of them, then that's considered a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they truly believe that is all they are is a schizophrenic. But if you change your language and change how you think about it as that is a person who has schizophrenia, or that's a person who has depression, or a person who has dementia, then they are a person and they have a diagnosis, but they are not one and the same. So when you do that, you actually see them as a person who's struggling with something, and you don't just see that diagnosis. And I'm guilty of it. I've told people lots of times, like, gosh, that person is such a narcissist, or that bipolar, they're driving me crazy. And we've all labeled people, but labels are what we use to define things, and we have to get into the habit of seeing a person first and then their struggles next. So third is to encourage equality between physical and mental illness. So we go to the doctor most of the time for checkups, diabetes, cholesterol, anything of that nature, because those are scientific things that we have diagnoses for. So why is it so hard for us to go to our primary care doctor or a counselor or a psychiatrist for a mental health illness or issue? Why do y'all think that is?
Stigma from the community.
Okay.
A fear of what you might find out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because you think it's one thing, and then you go see a counselor, and it could be something completely different that's you've buried for a long time.
Something that could be painful,
Yeah, and
difficult to deal with.
and that's fearful. We like to just deal with the surface, and
Control, we like to control.
definitely,
And our head's not part of our body either.
Oh.
yeah. It's easier to deal with the physical stuff than it is to deal with the mental, because physical is very black and white. Our mental health is very, very much the gray area, because you can have one thing dealing with something and it turn into something completely different. So we have to be able to, again, be vulnerable in that aspect, to be open and find what's truly going on. I mean, there's always a joke with counselors that, you know, we go to school to be a counselor to figure out what's wrong with us and what's wrong with our family. But, sir?
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Me too.
But we have to, I mean, when we go through school, we are very vulnerable. We have to actually go through counseling ourselves to truly experience it. And I feel like every person should go see a counselor at least a few times in their lifetime to be able to experience it and see what it's like to talk to a non-biased person that knows you but doesn't know you, and so they can give you, you know, good advice on the different things that you're going through.
I'll just throw this out.
Yeah.
When I went to a counselor several years ago, it gave me a totally different perspective on how other people's lives are, and to think in terms of, like you were saying before, don't label.
Right.
That this is something that it opened up the whole world of treating mental illness as opposed to suppressing it. So I think it's good for everybody, because you might find out something about yourself that you wanted to change, but also gives you an extraordinary awakening of people in the world and what they're dealing with mental illness.
Like you said, it gives you a different perspective. You see people in a different light than you would normally before. Another thing that has become about, especially because of COVID, with counseling and mental illness, is the online therapy, like for telehealth. There are a ton of different options that you can actually create an account, and I know one of them is called BetterHelp, and I think another one's called ThriveWorks. But they actually, you take a quiz to figure out who you would be best fit with, and then you meet with that counselor and see if that one works. And if it doesn't, then you can pick another counselor. But the good thing is that you can do it anywhere, and you don't have to stop, drive 20 minutes somewhere, spend 45 minutes with them, and then drive back.
Has that helped remove some of the stigma? Because it seems like that'd be less threatening.
Yes, it has, because especially during COVID, people weren't able to go. And so a lot of these came out because it was so hard to get to places, and when you're behind a screen, it's less offensive and it's less scary.
Right, when you're driving, you're braver. No.
Right. You have more confidence when you've got a screen in between you, but you're still open and honest with that counselor.
Plus, people, you might not run into people you know that way, I mean, that
Well,
way.
you won't run into
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You
it's
can
like,
hide.
I'm here at a counselor place and they saw me come in
Right.
and.
The stigma is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it has definitely helped. I know quite a few counselors that have started doing it, and they love it because they get to make their own schedule. They can do it anywhere, and then it's also helpful for the client because they can be driving down the road or be at the office and shut their door for 30 minutes and then still do counseling and get the help that they need without being a strain on them. I mean, caregivers know time is precious, and sometimes you don't get to leave the house, and so maybe you have someone come over, sit with your loved one for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then you're able to have your me time and work through what's going on with you. So it's definitely an option, and if you're interested, I can get you some information on those different things as well. So the fourth one is to choose empowerment over shame. Does anyone know what the definition of empowerment is?
Feeling important.
Feeling strong, overcoming something that has been a struggle for you. And I think with mental health, choosing empowerment means you're choosing yourself over what everyone else thinks. Because we all get shamed with different things. And I think mental health is the big thing we can get shameful for because it is taboo to an extent. And with that,
Excuse me.
you're okay, Mr. Neville. We choose to get the help we need, so we need to empower ourselves and empower others around us to think just because I'm going through this doesn't mean I need to shove it under the rug, doesn't mean I need to push it down and not deal with it. Because the more you push things down, I always use this analogy with my kids at school, the more you press it down, the tighter it's gonna get and the harder it's gonna be, and then you're gonna be like a Coke and spew everywhere over the tiniest thing. So if you deal with it when it happens, it's easier to work through and it's not as big as you feel like it is. Writing stuff down is a great technique to do because once you get it out of your brain, you're not focusing on it and you can deal with it better. Being honest about your treatment, it's a great way because sometimes we will trick ourselves into think, oh, it's not really that bad. Yeah, I'm gonna go, but I'm only gonna go one time. Being truly honest and vulnerable with yourself and saying, you know what, I'm gonna give this 6 sessions and see how it goes. If you go see, a psychiatrist or your primary care doctor and they suggest maybe you need some medicine, don't think just because it's an antidepressant or anything like that, that it's the worst thing ever. Sometimes people need that extra help to get going. And it's okay to have those things. I personally believe sometimes we need a little extra help and it's okay. Being honest with yourself is the most important thing because you never know what you're gonna find and you never know what's gonna happen. So if you're honest with yourself, then you're able to work things out better. So my caregivers, number 6 is to take care of yourself. When was the last time you did something for yourself?
Yesterday.
Good.
I went to the gym and worked out.
Nice. So having that time for yourself is really hard. It's hard to carve it out, especially when you're a caregiver of someone for 24/7, 365 days of the year.
Luckily, I have a daughter that doesn't work during the day. She has 2 kids and she sends them off to school, so here you have your dad today. She's okay.
But that's good though, because you need your time. You need to have your freedom a little bit, because I mean a caregiver is a thankless job. And so you need to have yourself to recharge your batteries, take care of yourself before you take care of anyone else. Because if you're on a decline, then who else is gonna help and be there for your loved one?
Something I do for myself is coming to the support group meetings.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my Lord.
Yes.
They are wonderful. We
You
actually
enjoy it, you're enjoying it too.
Yeah, sure.
we actually just started another one at the Blake last night. We started it back up on the first Tuesday of the month, and we actually had 7 new people come.
Wow.
So those support groups are there. They're all there for you and to help you, and for us to be able to be there for you, and y'all to have a community to rely on. And if you're going through something, then someone else may be going through, and they can give you advice for those things. And sometimes you just need to vent, and that's okay. We all need those venting sessions. So taking care of yourself is the most important thing, whether it be, doing something silly or something you do have the same thing every week. Taking some time for yourself is the most important thing. And lastly, I have, don't harbor self-stigma. So do not be hard on yourself or judge yourself, because we are our own worst critics. Don't judge yourself for needing that extra help. There are people who have chemical imbalances in their brain that need the extra help, like a medication, to help make it even keel, or I've heard it to raise the floor up to level again. So do not be hard on yourself for having to have those things. It's okay. You may not have to have those things forever. Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes part of the reason we're hard on ourselves is we're comparing ourselves to others.
Yes.
And, I mean, what we learn is that others' lives are not as rosy as we perceive them from the outside. You know, we might see their Facebook page and everything looks wonderful, or we might
yes.
run into them even in the grocery store, and how are you? I'm fine, and they'll tell you the good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not gonna stand there in the grocery store and tell you the bad stuff, so part of it is just comparing ourselves to others and having this inflated picture of how wonderful other people are doing relative to us, and it's really not true.
And social media is the world's
It is
worst
the
for
worst,
that, because
yeah.
like you said, people only post the good stuff, never the bad stuff. So we always have to remember reality, that is fantasy.
Mhm.
Reality is never as good as how they portray it. So being honest with yourself and going, look, yes, that's going on, but I'm sure there's 10 different things that's going on in their life, and I'm gonna be happy for them for having their positive things, but I'm not gonna compare myself to them, because our lives are totally different, and what we have is special, and they may be going through something, and maybe I can say, hey, if you're going through something, I can help. So being honest and open with everyone is the big thing, and not comparing yourself and not judging yourself for needing that extra help, because at the end of the day, we all need a little extra help every now and then, and that's okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I have it's not really a question, but it's an interesting thing that may put some people at ease, is that there is a statistic, and it's worldwide, that if you are a caregiver for somebody 24/7, like you were saying, some of the numbers differ, but it's between 50 and 80%
Mm-hmm.
will develop a chemical depression if you cannot keep a balance, and that's
Okay,
exactly
that's
why
good.
this place exists.
I already take something for that.
There's no nurse that works 24/7,
Correct.
there's no person on any kind of job that works 24/7. If you don't have those breaks, your brain will drain, and it's,
I used to get, I would blow up even if a child spilled water. I mean, just literally. Talked to my gynecologist about it, you know, because I had hysterectomy and stuff, and he, oh, it's just daily life. Switched to a female. First thing she did was say, I got something that'll fix that, and it has made 10 milligrams has made all the difference in the world in the way I react. So
Wow.
You just had to level that floor up a
I
little
had to
bit.
level it up.
And
Yeah,
that's okay.
because I'm always the one in charge. You know, I'm the oldest of 10. I'm the mother of 4, and I got grandkids. It's like, and now I'm in charge of him. It's like, okay, I can do this.
You get too many irons in the fire.
Right, right.
So you taking your time for yourself.
And they want to increase that to 20. I might need it soon.
What I was
Lisa's
glad,
there.
I'm sorry, wait.
I'm,
No, what I was glad with is to see corporations, now turning their focus on it.
Yes.
What was really cool to find out, we were at a conference and, on mental health and dementia and caregiving. And they used to say, and the speaker made the statement, it used to be the classes were 90% women. Now you see a great deal of men in here.
That's true.
And so that relieves, some of the stigma, and that men open up and are recognizing that they do have to pitch in, that they are sometimes the primary caregiver. And so you have to seek advice and heed that advice and take advantage of the resources that are offered, and not just, I'm the guy, I take care of everything, I'm supposed to be bulletproof. No, that doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, and especially with corporations, they have their employee assistance program, and offering free counseling to all of their employees. I think is a great thing, because counseling it can be expensive, and if you don't have insurance, it can be really expensive. So
Insurance is tighter with mental health and with physical health issues. Insurance is a lot
yes,
tighter.
it absolutely is. They only give you so many sessions, and then you have to reapply and everything. So having those free sessions are like a godsend, because you can actually see what you can get out of it, and then keep going if it's necessary. So definitely. Anybody else have any questions or any comments?
Laura, would you suggest that people, even if they feel like they're on a pretty even keel, make an appointment to go and visit a mental health professional? Just out of the blue, just say everybody should do this just to have a checkpoint. And
Yeah, absolutely, because it's always a good idea to keep yourself in check, because you may be thinking you're great, but after talking to a counselor, you may say, I do have a couple of things I need to discuss, and they're gonna see that outside in, or you're only seeing what you see, so they're gonna be your good gauge for what's going on in your life too. That's one of the things that was a requirement for my counseling. We all had to go through counseling sessions. We had to do mock counseling sessions with people, and sitting on the other side of the couch is very, very humbling, because you truly feel how your client feels. And I am a firm believer in it. I've been to counseling many a times, and it has helped me with depression and anger, and it gives me, the saying, do as I say, not as I do. I'm great at that. So having that counselor to rein me back in and keep me in check, and it's really helpful.
I guess we do it for our physical health already. We get routine checkups.
Yeah.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And then finally, I guess at Rotary, of all places, I got the best advice from someone that's gone through it, but they said, when you have a sibling that's supposed to be doing the care, don't judge them on how you would do it.
Correct.
Because oftentimes they're incapable or not able to do the kind of care that you would. And so instead of internalizing it, blowing up, just come to some peace and go, look, this is not what you're good at. And I
That
don't
sounds like a Stacy hand.
it wasn't Stacy, but
That
it
does sound like
was
a
close,
Stacy.
but yeah, but you sit down, you tell the person, "Look, for my own sanity, I gotta realize that, you just aren't gonna do it, so.
Well, and having that community of caregivers to help as well, because what you're good at, someone else may not be good at, and having to be able to tag team is really helpful as well. And that way you're not taking on everything, because when you take on everything, that emotion and that stress will bring you down and burn you out faster than anything else.
I saw a counselor, a lady counselor, about 30 years ago. And because I had a major change that I needed to make some decisions about. And my whole first hour, I cried and blubbered the whole time, just, that was all I did the first hour. And then I came back to see her, and then I was able to make some decisions, so.
Well, and sometimes you need that. You need that
I
release.
just needed an outlet, I just booed the whole
Yeah.
time.
The fancy word for it is cause it's called catharsis. You need that release of emotion, and it was someone who was non-biased and non-judgmental to you, and you could open up to her about everything.
She had no idea what I was even there for.
But hey, you still went back.
Yeah, it was worth
Oh,
it.
she knew, you were there because you needed somebody to
Yeah.
talk to.
Yeah.
That was it.
It's,
But I guess I don't know if anyone's seen that commercial where there were guys are lifting weights and gentleman's bench pressing and can't get the weight off his chest, and he asked for help. The guy said, "No, you don't know my family." Oftentimes in certain families, when you talking about mental health and all that, some families aren't equipped to even have those conversations.
you are true. That is very true.
Well, in my family, it's, if you ignore it, it doesn't exist.
You're that ostrich that sticks your head in the
Right.
sand. Absolutely.
That's how most families are.
Oh, okay.
You're not-
We're not
The
unique.
minority, no.
You are not alone in that aspect, no. But it takes that one person who's consistently doing it, and your family can see the change in you, and they maybe. They just have to have that little bit of openness to start going.
Well, I got a question for you on that aspect, because it frustrates me when you have someone that's not going through it and they wanna offer their opinion. And you
Yeah.
kinda like,
Okay.
you don't have a clue,
Right?
right? So, I don't know what junior high school, Dr. Roof or Dr. Phil you've been watching, but you're really not making much sense. And I guess that would aggravate someone more than anything else, is, if someone's gonna open up to you, at least be proficient to help them come up with a viable solution.
Right.
Or just listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, if you don't have the experience, it's hard sometimes because you wanna fill that
Awkward
space with
silence.
words and you start, but you just need to learn to listen and to be comfortable when there's nothing going on, when there's just silence.
Exactly.
just to be there for that
I think people
person.
mean well. They mean well.
They do. They definitely mean well, and they feel like they're trying to help you in any way that they can. And if someone is trying to tell you how to be a caregiver, my best option would say, okay, let's come and you experience this firsthand, and have them come in to your house and be there as well, but be them to be the primary caregiver for the day, so they could really experience what you're going through and what is going on.
I would,
That didn't happen, is it?
no, that's not gonna happen, or, my response to that, and even with my own sibling, is you have an end point at 5 o'clock or after a weekend, you're gonna go home, and it's what's left,
Right.
right? So you know that it's gonna end, and that's not a fair assessment, right?
That's true.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I can tell it's very frustrating for you.
Not anymore, I'm not, but I appreciate your comment where you said I would blow up. You learn, blowing up, I'm not gonna kill myself. And, I'm gonna borrow something from Dr. Tate when he was here. I'm not going to the insane asylum for you.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes it'd just be stupid stuff like the water.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can wake that up. Why did you get mad about that? But I probably have a lot going on in my life.
You were probably shoving it down and not dealing with it, and that one little bitty thing.
We had one daughter that, our second oldest, who caused a lot of friction in the family. She was smoking in high school and would go to her friend's house and they'd drink beer, and just all this stuff. She ran away twice. So we went through counseling.
Mm-hmm.
17 days before she was to graduate, she almost didn't, because she went to school bragging that she had had beer that morning at a friend's house. We had been through this off and on. Every time I'd find cigarettes, I'd throw them away. Didn't do any good. But now she's got 3 kids of her own, and she's married, and got one grandkid. She's totally different. She knows how she was, and she's sorry for it. But
Sounded like she needed
she
some
put
time
me
to
through
grow
hell.
up.
And she's praying that none of her children will do that to
Oh
her.
no, her children are, they smoke, they drink, they have a good time. And her kids are older. She's got the oldest 3 of mine, 22, 25, and 30. Those are her kids. Yeah, the rest of them are like 4, 8, because our kids' ages are a big range. So,
There's 10 of you.
well, no, I'm talking about my kids. I have 4, and they range in age from 35 to 50.
Gotcha.
So, it's a big. I have 2 that are like 7 and 8 years apart. But they're all ours. All ours. Sometimes it's because you're married again, but no, they're all ours.
Well, I just want to say, Ms. Paula, personal, I want to thank you because you made the statement. Just remember that your loved one is doing the best that they can.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home and told my wife that. And so, when you see them out there struggling, they do some stuff like that, you just say, remember, they're really trying. And so, don't just kind of, make your way through it. But from, when I speak about families from a professional standpoint, I've seen caregiving destroy some families, right? And they turn on each other, bring legal cases against each other, make up things about each other, and you find out that even some people in our medical community are signing off that they saw a person and they didn't. And when it comes out in court, that's not a good look either. So, we, as a society, we really gotta get a handle on things, because, once, every family's different, but when you see some of this stuff, you kinda go, wow, you really don't have it that bad.
Well, thank you, Laura.
I have one
Thank
more
you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What is the succinct advice that you could give a caregiver who comes up against that situation where someone earlier in their life had issues, mental issues they never dealt with, and they are beginning to surface now through dementia or Alzheimer's? What's the best advice that we can give caregivers on how to handle that situation that they're in right now? Because obviously we can't go back and
Right.
work with the dementia patient and determine where their unhappiness lies or where their issues were. What's the best way to deal with it?
Give them a lot of grace and to validate their feelings that they're going through at that moment, because they're dealing with something that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago, and they think it's right now, and if you validate their feelings, go, I know you're scared, or I know you're angry, I know something is going on, but I want you to tell me, I want you to open and let me in. And I'm doing some training from the Validation Institute, and Naomi Powell actually created this program for Alzheimer's and dementia people, and her big thing is just to validate what they're feeling, validate what they're going through. Don't try to redirect or distract them. Let them be in that moment, and they will calm down when you are actually listening to them as a person. So when someone is mad and throwing things, and you walk up to them and say, look, I get it. You're mad. You're upset. Let's talk about it. And they may not at first, but when you continue to open up and tell them, or when they open up to you and tell them or what's going on, you're then a trusted person. They're going to come to you, and they're going to be calmer around you when things are going on. And for the caregiver, I would have for them to someone to talk to as well about what's going on, because they're unsure that their person that has, his dementia or Alzheimer's is unsure of what's going on, and that caregiver is able to get advice from someone that they can use and hopefully help their family member as well.
It's kind of hard to be calm around somebody else that's not calm.
It definitely
It
is.
takes a very
I know.
strong individual, it does.
It takes a lot of grace
I-
for yourself and for them.
When I used to work in adult daycare, we had something like this come up where, the person with dementia, she had a son and a daughter, but what she never shared with her son and her daughter is there had been a previous child. She never shared that with her son and her daughter, but it was starting to come out
Mm-hmm.
when she lost her filters, and she would cry about it. She would, but still she hadn't voiced it. She was her speech was affected pretty early in her dementia too. So to be fair, she had a hard time communicating anything verbally because her speech was not good anymore. But you could tell the brain was still functioning, even though she couldn't express herself. But she would cry, and then she started talking about, one day it slipped out, she said something like, my other daughter.
Mm.
And so her daughter was gone at work when she said this, and so when her daughter came to get her, one of my staff asked, are you aware of whether or not your mother may have had another daughter? And I'll never forget her response. She says, well, if she did, she never told me. And I sure would like to know where she is right now, because I could use her help. and then she would talk about it more. But her first response was humor, and I thought, what a good tactic. And then she kind of said, things like, I'll listen carefully, and I'll talk to my family, the older family members, and things like that. Maybe there's some way we can help mom deal with this. This was her final. But her first response was pure humor, and I got such a kick out of her. It's like, she didn't get angry, she didn't get shocked, she just made a joke, and then dealt with it, so.
Validating that person is key. So like for that person, she missed her baby, and
Or I had never dealt with whatever happened back then.
Right.
I never dealt with whatever happened back then.
and you can talk to that person and go, I am so sorry, what happened? Be in that moment with them, and they're able to, you're helping them process it. Now, granted, it had probably happened 30, 40, 50 years later, but they are finally starting to process what happened. That's why, your caregivers who have dementia, or your loved ones who have dementia who were caregivers in previous, that's why they love baby dolls, that's why they love animals and things like that, because they see that as, that's a symbol for them, and they want to care and take for that person. They want to love and be the caregiver. So that's why you see Alzheimer's and dementia patients with baby dolls and things like that, because they're an innate caregiver, and they'll probably take care of everybody around them as well.
Don't you think probably everyone has something in their past that they're not proud of, or something that happened to them, or
Absolutely.
that they're kind of keeping in the dark?
Absolutely. We've all got skeletons in our closet. It's just sometimes those really dark ones, if we don't deal with them, they'll come out later. They're always gonna come out, whether you want them or not. Just my suggestion would be to deal with them now and be at peace with them, and that way you're able to have peace later on. Because we all have regrets too. Well, thank y'all so much. I appreciate it.
We searched long and hard for someone to fill this position, and I believe we found the right person, so. And Laura's available too for caregivers, if you ever wanna have a session with her. And, you know, it's free of charge, so, please always, be open to that as well. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you.